Welcome to the Empathy Stories channel, where we explore powerful moments of transformation and the human connection that shapes our lives. In today's story, we follow the journey of two saleswomen who, through an unexpected encounter with a woman they initially judged, learn a valuable lesson in respect and the true meaning of luxury. Join us as we dive into this heartfelt tale of growth and understanding. The streets of New York, particularly the iconic Fifth Avenue, pulsated with the vibrant rhythm of city life, a mixture of hurried footsteps, luxury vehicles gliding along, and the hum of 1,000 conversations interwoven with the sound of the city's heartbeat. Tourists, affluent shoppers, and local New Yorkers filled the sidewalks, their energy making the avenue feel almost alive. At the very heart of this urban labyrinth stood Eternal Elegance, a boutique synonymous with exclusivity and high-class luxury. Its sleek glass facade was like a portal into a world of sophistication, where every piece of merchandise told a story of craftsmanship, wealth, and taste. Inside, the store was nothing short of a palace. Rows upon rows of designer garments hung like works of art under the soft glow of crystal chandeliers. The polished marble floors shimmered beneath the feet of the few who dared to enter this sanctum of luxury. Classical music floated in the air, adding an air of timeless grace. It was a place that catered not just to the wealthy, but to those who appreciated a certain kind of lifestyle. And yet, beneath this exterior of refined elegance, something far less graceful simmered, an undercurrent of subtle, yet undeniable judgment. Marianne Dupree, a senior sales associate, stood behind the counter, adjusting a display of limited edition handbags with practiced hands. Her face, despite the professionalism she exuded, held an air of discontent, a silent sigh that had become all too familiar to her. The boutique had been slow that day, and the lack of customers had left her feeling both idle and cynical. "It's better than dealing with the wrong sort of clientele," Marianne muttered under her breath, adjusting a label on a bag. Her eyes narrowed in disdain. Sylvia Loron, her coworker, glanced up from arranging a display of shoes and offered a dry chuckle. "Indeed, it's not a museum after all," she quipped, her French-accented voice dripping with sarcasm. "Let's hope the next customer actually intends to shop." As if on cue, the boutique's door chimed gently, signaling the arrival of a customer. Marianne's eyes flicked toward the entrance, and her smile faltered as she saw the woman standing at the threshold. The woman was tall, her posture regal, and her presence calm yet commanding. Her natural curls framed a face that carried an air of quiet dignity. Despite her elegant dress, which was understated and free of any overt branding, there was an aura about her that hinted at something deeper. She was no ordinary shopper, and that was enough to make Marianne tense. In a store like Eternal Elegance, appearances mattered. First impressions were everything. The woman paused near the handbag display, her gaze lingering on a limited edition piece that caught her eye. Marianne exchanged a quick, knowing glance with Sylvia. They had seen this before, a woman who looked the part of a shopper. But the unspoken truth was clear to both of them. She likely wasn't the kind of customer they were used to. "I'll take care of her," Marianne announced to Sylvia with a forced smile. Stepping forward, approaching the woman, Marianne put on her best professional expression. "Welcome to Eternal Elegance. How can I assist you today?" she asked, her tone polite but cool. The woman turned to face her. Her gaze was steady, warm even, but there was an underlying caution in her eyes. Perhaps she had encountered judgment before. "I was admiring this handbag," the woman said softly, gesturing toward a piece under the glass. "Do you have it in other colors?" Marianne's lips tightened. The bag was one of the boutique's most expensive pieces, and she immediately doubted this woman's ability to afford it. "I'm afraid what you see is all we have in stock," Marianne replied, her tone dismissive, though she tried to mask it with politeness. The woman, undeterred, nodded calmly. "I see. Thank you," she said, her voice still steady, unshaken. She continued browsing, but Marianne couldn't help but feel a rising sense of superiority. She returned to the counter, whispering to Sylvia, "Just as I thought. She won't buy anything. Not the right sort for this kind of place." Sylvia raised an eyebrow and smirked. "They never do," she muttered, her voice dripping with condescension. "A place like this isn't for browsing. People like her should stick to department stores." The two exchanged a knowing look, the woman's presence serving only to amuse them briefly before they returned to their tasks. But the encounter, though brief, was one that lingered. There was something about the woman that made Marianne uneasy. She had a quiet strength that seemed out of place in a store like this. Her calm demeanor challenged the assumptions Marianne and Sylvia had made so effortlessly. Later, when the woman approached the counter, Marianne plastered a smile onto her face, eager to end the encounter without further incident. "Did you find anything you liked?" she asked, her voice overly sweet. The woman shook her head gently. "Not today. Thank you," she replied, her words polite but tinged with something Marianne couldn't quite place. "I believe I've seen everything I need to see." As the woman turned to leave, she paused at the door and looked back at Marianne and Sylvia. Her eyes, calm and composed, held a quiet intensity. "Respect is about more than appearances," she said softly, her words hanging in the air. "You never know who might walk through your doors." And then, with a final glance, she was gone, leaving the two women staring after her, confused and somewhat unsettled. Marianne and Sylvia exchanged bemused looks. "What was that supposed to mean?" Sylvia asked, a frown tugging at her lips. Marianne shrugged. "Just another lecture from someone who thinks they deserve respect just for being here," she said, her tone dismissive. But deep down, the words echoed in her mind. Something about that encounter had unsettled her. She didn't know it yet, but the lesson was already planted. And so, they let the moment pass. Or so they thought. But life is a way of bringing lessons when we least expect them. And the woman's words? They weren't so easily forgotten. It had been a month since that peculiar encounter with the woman at Eternal Elegance. And life, as it often does, had continued its course. The boutique had returned to its usual rhythm, its doors welcoming a steady stream of affluent customers. The kind who appreciated the finer things in life. The ones who could afford the luxury of exclusive designer goods. Marianne and Sylvia, once again immersed in their world of high-end fashion, had allowed the woman's words to fade into the background, dismissing them as just another passing moment. But then, one dreary Tuesday afternoon, something unexpected happened. The door chimes sounded once more, and Marianne's gaze instinctively lifted. Her heart skipped a beat. There, standing in the doorway, was the same woman from a month ago, but this time, she was not the quiet, understated figure they had first met. This time, she was someone entirely different. She entered with an unmistakable air of authority, her presence commanding attention even as she moved with quiet grace. Her appearance was transformed. Where once she had worn a simple, elegant dress, now she wore a sleek designer suit, tailored perfectly to her frame. In her hand, she carried a Birkin bag, the ultimate symbol of wealth and status. It wasn't just a handbag, it was a statement. Sylvia, standing beside Marianne at the counter, was the first to speak, her voice a hushed whisper. "Isn't that the woman from last month?" she asked, disbelief coloring her words. Marianne's mouth went dry. It was her, the same woman, but now she was impossible to ignore. She was radiant, composed, and, in that moment, she commanded the boutique with an elegance that seemed to swallow everything around her. "It is her," Marianne murmured, her earlier confidence faltering as she recognized the subtle power in the woman's every move. She had no idea what to expect now. The woman approached the counter with calm determination, her eyes scanning the boutique as if this time she was in control, not a passive visitor. Marianne stood up straighter, brushing off the uncomfortable feeling settling in her chest. She offered her most practiced smile, but the unease remained. "Welcome back to Eternal Elegance," Marianne said, her voice strained but polite. "How can I assist you today?" The woman met her gaze with quiet certainty. "I'm here to make a purchase," she said, her tone clear, almost final. as though there were no room for any doubt. This was different. Marianne's mind raced. The woman had returned, but now she was someone who demanded respect. She moved with purpose, selecting items with a refined touch, a limited edition handbag, a couture dress, and a collection of fine jewelry. Each piece was more extravagant than the last. Sylvia and Marianne exchanged glances. But this time, there was no smugness, no shared laugh. This was real. Marianne, trying to maintain her professional composure, approached the woman. "Can I assist you with anything?" she asked, her voice tentative. "No, thank you." The woman replied with a faint smile. "I know what I want." As Marianne rang up the items, her mind was racing. She watched in stunned silence as the woman reached into her Birkin bag, pulling out thick bundles of cash. She stacked the bills neatly on the counter, $100 bills, perfectly aligned, each stack more impressive than the last. Marianne and Sylvia stood frozen, unable to tear their eyes away from the growing pile of money. "Is that enough?" the woman asked, her voice almost playful now, as if she were toying with them. Marianne, barely able to contain her shock, stammered, "Yes, of course, but we'll need to count it all before completing the transaction." The woman's smile deepened. "Take your time." And so they did. For the next 2 hours, Marianne and Sylvia painstakingly counted the money. Each stack felt heavier than the last. And as the minutes turned into hours, the initial thrill began to wear off. The room was thick with tension, and the silence between them grew uncomfortable. When they were finally finished, Marianne looked up, her professional mask firmly back in place. "Everything seems to be in order. Shall we proceed with the transaction?" she asked, her voice trembling ever so slightly. But the woman, with a calmness that sent a chill through Marianne, simply shook her head. "Actually, I've changed my mind." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap, leaving Marianne momentarily stunned. "I'm sorry." "What?" she asked, sure she hadn't heard correctly. "I've decided not to buy anything today," the woman said, her voice steady and calm. "I just wanted to make sure you both understood the value of what I'm choosing not to purchase." And with that, the woman gathered her belongings, turning to leave. But before she exited the door, she stopped, her eyes sweeping over the two women who had once dismissed her so easily. "Respect isn't about how much money someone has," she said quietly. "It's about recognizing their worth, no matter how they look." The boutique's door chimed softly as she left, her words echoing in the air, a quiet reminder that people are more than just what they seem on the surface. Marianne and Sylvia stood frozen, unsure of how to process what had just happened. Their manager, Gérard Benoit, arrived shortly after the woman left, his face a mask of fury. The two women explained the events as best they could, but Gérard was not interested in excuses. "You judge her based on her appearance," he said coldly. "Now, our reputation might suffer because of it." His words hit them harder than they expected. Gerard's anger was not aimed at the woman's actions, but at their own. He made it clear that they had failed in their duty to treat every customer with respect, regardless of their outward appearance. "Find her," Gerard ordered. "Return her money and make this right. We cannot afford to let this stain linger." But despite their best efforts, the woman was impossible to track down. She had left no contact information, no trace of her identity. All they were left with were her words, and they carried a weight they had not anticipated. In the weeks that followed, something shifted in Marianne and Sylvia. They began to treat every customer with newfound respect. No longer would they assume that anyone who walked through the door was undeserving of the boutique's attention. No matter their appearance, they were humbled by the experience, reshaped by a lesson that came not through wealth, but through the quiet dignity of a single woman who had taught them a lesson they would never forget. Spring had arrived in New York, bringing with it a new sense of renewal that had spread beyond the city's skyline and into the heart of eternal elegance. The boutique, which had once been a place where customers were judged solely by their outward appearance, had undergone a quiet transformation. It was not the change of merchandise, nor the new trends adorning the shelves. No, this transformation had come from something deeper. It was a shift in attitude, in the way Marianne and Sylvia viewed not just their customers, but people in general. In the weeks following the woman's departure, both women had become increasingly self-aware, often reflecting on that fateful encounter. They found themselves grappling with feelings of guilt, but also of profound gratitude. The woman had not only taught them about the superficiality of wealth, but also about the importance of kindness, humility, and, most importantly, respect for others, regardless of their background or appearance. Though the change had not been immediate or easy, by the time the new spring collections arrived, both Marianne and Sylvia had embraced a new philosophy. No longer did they view each customer as either a potential sale or a waste of time. Instead, they greeted every individual who entered Eternal Elegance with the same warmth and professionalism. No matter their clothes, their accessories, or their demeanor, they had learned that true luxury didn't lie in the price tag of a handbag, but in the human connection that could be cultivated through genuine respect. But it was not until one sunny afternoon that the full extent of their transformation would be tested. The door chime rang again, and as Marianne glanced up, she froze, her heart skipping a beat. There, walking into the boutique, was the same woman, Naomi. This time, though, she wasn't dressed in an elegant suit or carrying an eye-catching designer bag. No, this time she wore a simple, modest outfit, unassuming yet impeccably put together. Her presence, as before, was still commanding, but this time there was an air of quiet satisfaction about her, as though she knew something that no one else did. Sylvia, standing beside Marianne, nudged her gently. "Is that her?" she asked, her voice filled with awe. It was as if the weight of the moment was bearing down on both of them. "It is," Marianne replied, her voice tinged with a mix of surprise and a newfound respect. "I didn't expect her to return, but here she is." Naomi walked through the boutique with the same quiet dignity as before. But this time, there was no distance between her and the staff. No guarded expression. No sense of superiority. She moved with grace, pausing to admire the items on display, as if she belonged here, not because of her wealth, but because she had earned it in ways that Marianne and Sylvia were beginning to understand. Marianne took a deep breath, her emotions swirling within her. The lesson Naomi had given them weeks ago was not something they would forget easily. And now, it seemed, there was an opportunity to put that lesson into practice. Approaching Naomi with genuine warmth, Marianne offered her a sincere smile. "Good afternoon," she said. "It's wonderful to see you again." Naomi glanced up at her, her lips curving into a faint but approving smile. "I wanted to see if things had truly changed here," she said, her voice soft but steady. Marianne nodded, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and humility. "They have," she replied, her voice sincere. "And it's because of you." Naomi's expression softened at the words, but she said nothing in reply. Instead, she continued her browsing, inspecting the garments and jewelry with a calm yet discerning eye. As Naomi selected a few items, Marianne couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. The past month had been a journey of introspection and growth, and this moment seemed to encapsulate all of it. She approached Naomi once again as she reached the counter, this time with an apology that had been long overdue. "I just wanted to say, I owe you an apology," Marianne said, her voice low and sincere. "The way we treated you before, it was wrong. I was quick to judge you based on your appearance, and I didn't recognize the person you were. I'm deeply sorry for that." Naomi paused for a moment, looking at Marianne with a level of understanding that was almost disarming. "It's okay," she said, her tone softening. "I understand. Sometimes it takes a moment like that for people to see things differently. What matters is that you've made an effort to change." Her words stung with truth. Marianne had learned that there was no shortcut to true respect, no quick fix to undo the harm of preconceived judgments. It had to be earned, not just from Naomi, but from everyone who walked through the boutique doors in the future. As Naomi made her purchase and gathered her things, she paused for a moment at the door, turning back to Marianne and Sylvia. She offered them a small but knowing smile. "Thank you for listening," she said simply. And then, with the same quiet dignity that had marked her entrance, she walked out of the boutique and disappeared into the bustling New York streets. For Marianne and Sylvia, that moment marked the culmination of a transformation that neither could have predicted. It wasn't just about providing a higher level of customer service or improving their professional demeanor. No, it was something far more profound. The lesson Naomi had imparted was a deep and enduring one. That true worth was not about appearances or material possessions, but about the respect and kindness we show to one another, regardless of their outward signs of success or wealth. In the weeks that followed, Eternal Elegance became a beacon of warmth and inclusivity, a place where people were not judged by their clothes, their wealth, or their status. It was a place where everyone, regardless of their background, was treated with the same dignity and respect that Naomi had taught them to value. The boutique flourished in ways Marianne and Sylvia never imagined, not because of the luxury items they sold, but because of the intangible richness of human connection that now defined their work. And for the first time in their careers, they both understood that true luxury wasn't something you could buy. It was something you could only give. Thank you for watching this story of growth, humility, and the power of respect. We hope it resonated with you as much as it did with us. If you enjoyed this journey, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Empathy Stories channel. Together, let's continue to spread the message that kindness and understanding can change lives. Until next time, remember, every person has a story worth listening to.